everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm really, truly excited today because we have so many of you to attend the launch of the book, The Transformers, from all over the world. My name is Tom Pfister, and I'm today's host and the CMO for Data Migration International. I'm thrilled to welcome the two protagonists to our virtual book launch event, Andreas Graesser. Andreas, the author of the book, The Transformers, and Liam Ryan, SAP's Managing Director of the SAP Labs in Ireland. Today, Andreas and Liam will take you on a journey through the digital world in times when economic conditions force companies to manage their bottom line, as we all know, reinvent or transform their business to become a true intelligent business. The Transformers book is Andreas' second book, in fact, he wrote for the business community. His primary intent is to encourage the business communities around the world to think about data as the new oil of the 21st century. Jai Agassi, SAP's former president of SAP's technology group, summarizes it this way. The expansion of data and time horizons is the foundational bedrock for data transformers. New intelligent platforms extend data horizons into history to learn patterns that can predict the future. The Transformer story fascinates me and hits the right mark. Before we kick off this web event, I'm privileged to introduce you first and foremost, Andreas. Welcome, Andreas, the author of the book. Andreas, a German-born former SAP senior executive who worked for more than 21 years in SAP, and managed hundreds of highly complex transformational customer programs in North America, Latin America, Europe, and Asia. In 2019, Andreas published his first best-selling book, Run IT, Dominating Information Technology, laying out basically the details of the 5 pitfalls of software implementation. Now, today, Andreas specializes in digital business transformation services across many industries, working as an entrepreneur with his clients to invent and implement usage scenarios for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Andreas empowers today the business leaders to create their digital visions. Andreas lives in Wayne, just outside Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, basically with his wife Gudrun, who is, by the way, also on the call, and is the father of 2 daughters and 1 son. Andreas is an active cyclist and loves to play his pipe organ and the piano. In addition, I would like also to introduce you to Liam Ryan. Liam is the Managing Director of SAP's Labs in Ireland. He joined SAP a long time ago in 1999 and has overseen the growth of SAP's operations in Ireland, totaling now to over 2,300 employees across 29 lines of business in Dublin and Galway. SAP Labs Ireland focuses on remote services delivery and, among many other areas, on BI research using smart insights for the SAP Analytics Cloud. Liam holds a bachelor's degree in electronic engineering from the DIT and Trinity College in Dublin. He still lives in Dublin together with his family and is a keen golfer. Before I turn over to our speakers, I would like to end my introduction with a quote given by Gert Oswald. Many of you know him, currently the member of SAP's supervisory board for this book launch. The Transformers describes not only SAP HANA's compelling predictive analytics capabilities, but also explains the required data transformation for the digitized enterprise explicitly. The simplification of companies' data architectures will unleash innovative power never seen before. This book is a must-read, and I agree with him on that, for all business leaders tasked with transformational programs. Finally, please feel free to send us during the session your questions via the chat box, and we will answer them at the end of the interview. Now, please join me in welcoming Andreas and Liam to this session. Andreas, once again, congrats to this book, and now over to Liam.
Many thanks, Tom, and many thanks for your introduction. And I would like to also congratulate Andreas. Andreas, we both go back a long way. You were my first mentor at SAP when I started in Ireland, and I'm delighted that you have had the time even to start writing another book. So I guess, how did the book come to life?
Yeah, that was an interesting story. So I met Tom in last November, I guess, was it, in down at his favorite coffee place, La Colombe. So, and I explained to him the concept, so I wanted to write about a book about big data, data transformation, business transformation. And I wanted to pitch the idea, okay, he works for a company who does data transformation, why not doing something together? So after some coffee, we got an agreement in principle. So it took still a little bit time to get everything worked out. But I can tell you, once you have the book in your hands, finally printed, it's very rewarding.
Right. And but what's, I guess there must be a true motivation behind it. What kind of thing really struck you?
I mean, my true motivation was really I wanted to help business leaders, So obviously my favorite topic is digital business transformation. But I saw many people around me, struggling to get their arms around digital. What is it? So so my main motivation is really to give them a jump start, not only to get a better understanding what those three words mean, but also I want to make them think about it, think about digital, and even more doing something about it. I mean, we are now in these COVID-19 times, the entire business world, major industry parts, they changed online, and online is digital. So from that point, I want to reach out to business leaders and ask them, if you're not already in the midst of a transformation, then start your digital business transformation now.
Okay, I mean, digital business transformation, it's a really broad topic, a huge topic. And is there somebody specific, who specifically is aimed at with this book?
I mean, I have I mentioned already, I have the business leaders responsible who are involved or are involved in business transformation in mind. But I also want to reach out to IT leaders, and of course, tomorrow leaders, the MBA grads, for example, like my daughter just finished last Saturday her MBA studies. So I included in this book, more or less a little bit more product related chapters. But the main part of the book is really about concepts, methodologies. So I'm writing about these things. They are generic and easily applicable to everybody.
Great, great. And I mean, Tom mentioned it earlier, data is the new oil. There's an awful lot of talk at this moment of time about data lakes. You refer in the book to a digital tsunami. I mean, how are we going to make sense of all of this data?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, just think about your own devices, for example. I mean, you produce so much data in so many places, on social networks, on everywhere. I mean, email is maybe the smallest chunk of this all. When you log on to the internet, I mean, your browser produces or can produce a kind of a digital fingerprinting. So even not knowing your name, it can make you can be identifiable on the internet. Or take facial recognition, for example. I mean, each photo that you post, produces and contributes to the big data. So from that point, it's and very often, I have to say, if you post a photo, your social network provider, calculates a digital signature out of the photo. What makes you recognizable? Your photo is recognizable on the internet. And of course, this carries some risks. Your digital signature can expose your privacy. So therefore, I think protecting yourself is important. I mean, these days you're using and you're wearing face masks, against, protecting yourself against COVID-19. So, but do you know that face masks also protect you against facial recognition? Yeah, face masks cover too much of your face, so from that point, the computers, they cannot calculate a digital signature. So at the end, so protecting your health and protecting your privacy is a nice side effect from wearing face masks.
Okay, and I mean, you mentioned as well, like data waves overrunning, and you talked there about a few examples in relation to people. What about businesses? How does that apply to business?
I mean, with business, they know there are all those big data around. But what I'm saying is they need to think about how to make this kind of big data work for them so they can reach more customers. And as a side effect, selling more stuff. Think about digital marketing. So the main question is really how to reach people who most probably will like and need your products or services. I mean, that's the core of digital marketing. But this only works if your business becomes 100% digital and integrated.
But I guess it sounds like you need to be a data scientist to get your head around all of this data. Is that something that you think? Do we all need to be data scientists?
No, I don't think so. I mean, eventually you might need a data scientist if you are not. But at the end of the day, you need first to think about a usage scenario. Those scientists, they cannot give you, let's say, advice how can you use this big data. So there is still a large gap to bridge, I think, from the theory of using big data to practical application to your own specific marketing campaign. So data scientists can help you at the end to tune algorithms, but first and foremost, the business idea and what you want to do, this has to come from you.
And Andreas, most of your working life has been in ERP. I guess, when did you start to realize the need for digitizing how businesses run and what that impact would be? When we talk about digital and digitizing, what do you mean by that as well?
Yeah, I mean, digital is nothing new. At the end of the day, it's the ERP systems. Think back to R2. I mean, the R2 era started 1981-ish. So at that time, computers were there and information was digitized. So it's not new. However, if you think the challenges today, people they are using and business, they are using so many applications, mainly in the cloud. But these apps, I would say, they are not integrated. They are not working together. So they are more or less single pieces. So when I use the term digitizing, I mean basically that all business processes and transactions are completely integrated and controlled by computer systems. And I mean this really end to end.
And I mean, within the book, you mentioned the opportunity to innovate. Now, innovation itself means different things to different people. Any thoughts on how to manage or to drive or to foster innovation?
I mean, this is a very important topic because, we in these days, we are facing constant changes on consumer behaviors, on customer needs. I mentioned already COVID-19 and everything goes online. I mean, if we want to stay in business, we have to react and we have to think about, how to make things better and how to make my business applicable. So from that point, innovation is, I mean, the word innovation sounds pretty big, but innovation really starts very small. How to change immediately on customer needs. So in my life, I use design thinking as I mean, design thinking is my preferred innovation methodology. It's easy to understand, and you can use it and execute it everywhere. It's easy to pull off. But you know what is behind this kind of methodology is really, okay, you have a structured step approach, but at the end you spark new ideas. And this innovation is not always, okay, it's Nobel Prize like level. I mean, innovation could be on a very small level, you know, changing things. So I think innovation is closer, in my understanding, it's closer to change. And in our context, you know, innovation, how to use big data to advance and to transform business. So that's my point here.
Okay, I mean, again, digital business transformation is such a large thing. Any other success ingredients, innovation we just spoken about around transformation?
Yeah, very close to innovation. I think it's what I call thought leadership. I mean, the business leaders, they need to know, and I guess I come back a little bit later to this topic, but thought leadership, knowing what you want to do, is very important. Secondly, I think the communication is very important. I mean, it's not enough you have your vision in your head. I mean, you need to be able to share your ideas, to explain it to your people, to explain it simple and easy, and encourage them so they follow you. And then, of course, the third area is the vision and execution. So this is, I think, success ingredients for digital business transformation is always to also to predict the future, or foresee the future, or foresee how business will turn, you know, the possibilities how business can turn, and to make it happen. So this is my so those are the three success ingredients, I think, in addition and above innovation.
Great, great. I mean, I mentioned earlier, you know, it's the new oil. Data is the new oil, but you go a little bit further and talk about the crown jewels and the value of data. Why the crown jewels and the value?
Yeah, I mean, the data enterprises, you know, the enterprises, they have data about customers, products, intellectual properties. And I think in many cases, I mean, think about your customer data. Those are the most valuable items basically you have. Not first, you know, you have it in. So I think we should really treat them like jewelry. And therefore I came with this picture, okay, my data, jewels that need protection. So of course, the data is not physical, but I need a safe place for the data. And so usually it's a secure data store. And in my mind, it's not somewhere in the cloud.
Okay. An awful lot of companies over the years would have built up a lot of information, possibly on paper, possibly digitized. But what happens to those companies who still have non-digitized, we'll call them data sheets?
Yeah, if they have non-digital, if they have data sheets, I mean, then I say digitize now. I mean, this is, I mean, without, I mean, if you think ahead, I mean, without digital, I mean, you won't survive in the long run, I would say. In the long run, I mean, 5 to 10 years from now. So this is the first step, is you would of course, you know, scan all those paper architectural designs or whatever it is into PDF format, and then save and organize the PDFs in your data store. And if you're really going highly sophisticated in the digitization, then I think use you know, software that does pattern recognition. So it's not only that you just scan an architectural design, but you really put it, you scan it in a way that it's recognized, like the facial recognition algorithms, what we discussed earlier. So if you have millions of plans and designs to digitize, I think it makes sense to use such tools to help you digitize now. But there's no way around. You have to do it now.
And I guess, you know, back to our crown jewels, if I think, for me, the most famous crown jewels are the ones over in the Tower of London, and they're very well protected. How about the crown jewels in order? They also need to be protected. Any thoughts there?
Think about, you know, a boiler manufacturer, for example. I mean, this is maybe a business already in business for more than 40 years, but there still might be boilers out there still working and need maintenance and so on. For those maintenance guides and architecture plans for all those boiler models, you know, you need to have accessible. So you have to have access to design plans. That's crucial, particular if it's becoming emergency situations. So those are for this specific company, you know, those old plans and guidelines and designs, they're really the crown jewels for this company. But think about yourself. I mean, your own privacy data. You know, we discussed before, you know, customer data, privacy data. I mean, I consider these particular privacy data, I consider this as well as crown jewels. So therefore, I think, you know, they are protected in some countries even by law. So we have the GDPR, so the General Data Protection Regulations in the EU, and we have similar laws here in the United States, in California, with the California Consumer Privacy Act. But you know, at the end of the day, laws is not everything. I mean, at the end of the day, data protection of your crown jewels require a kind of a human firewall. So most of the time, if you read the statistics, most of the time hackers, you know, gain access to systems or obtain logon data. You know, this happens through social engineering. So from that point, despite all technology tools and efforts to protecting data, the weakest link in the chain are the human beings, and therefore we need also to have, you know, training and awareness sessions, you know, for colleagues, for everybody working in a certain company to help protect data.
I agree. I mean, wholeheartedly, and it's something that we really try and emphasize in SAP as well. So I guess we've lots of data, and the amount is increasing year on year. You know, old data as well. Like, how long do we need to keep it? How long is this old data piece of string, so to speak?
That's a good question. I mean, I say old data is not like red wine. What means the older, the better. Okay, but on the other side, old data needs to be preserved, because business leaders today, they don't know exactly if and when and how this so-called old data or historical data is being used or needed at one point in the future. So think about refineries of big oil and gas oil companies. I mean, a refinery, you know, it runs at least for 50 years, and they consist, I don't know, of millions of parts. The refinery, that the parts need to have maintenance tracks and logs and everything. So the entire maintenance data must be tracked and logged. So 50 years is a long time if you think back, you know, your own age, so to speak. But you know, for those kind of big items, like a refinery, it's just, you know, to break even, you know, after such a long time. So from that point, I would say 30 to 50 years is sometimes even needed in some businesses.
Experience management is a category that SAP is investing very, very heavily in and sees a huge future for as well. And it's all about understanding our customers and employees are feeling. And SAP talks about combining X and O data by collecting experience data at every meaningful touch point. But you introduce in your book the concept of H data, so combining X and O and H data. Maybe you might expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I expanded the model by the historical component. By H data means historical data, means old data. So I call it the XOH model. And it combines really X data, what is experience data, and I explain this in a second. O data, what is operational data, and H data, what is historical data. So in my view, all the three data layers, they are needed within a digital business. So to explain it a little bit, I mean, O data, so operational data, we know for a long time out of the ERP world. So this is, sales orders, financial data, all that stuff. X data, so this is more experience data. It describes likes or usability, or it describes sentiments. Somebody has preferences, somebody says, I'm happy about whatever. This is more or less the feelings, the feeling component in the model. And then you have the H data, the historical data. So on the basis of the old data, we can develop and calculate predictions into the future, to develop future patterns or predict future outcomes. So all the three components need to be together. So X, O, and H.
And any examples of companies especially using X data?
I still have a favorite business example. So what is Burberry? So they use it, they consume more or less real-time data to create unique experiences for their customers. So they use, for example, buying records from the past of their customers, what is in our model the H data. So they're combining it with actual data, like product availability, logistical information, shipment information, and so on, what is the O data. And then they create, let's say, an experience that helps to entice customers. For example, a shopper walks into Burberry, we capture the idea through RFID, on the back end in real time. The computer model would create and calculate, let's say, preferences in fashions, and at the same time would then, while the shopper is still in the store, would bring up those kind of fashion examples on the screens. So this would help, to convince customers, okay, even the customer even didn't know he likes it, but based on history, you can condense and identify patterns what the customer might want to buy. So from that point, I think it's a nice case combining in real time, specific data extracted from the big data pools.
And I mean, O data has been around for a long time, the operational data, and I guess that then feeds into the H data. They've been around for quite a long time. What do you believe was the real breakthrough that enabled real-time processing of O data?
Yeah, I think the real breakthrough was really the invention of the InMemory Database. So I think this played a very important role in this entire schema, in particular for the business world. So operational data in real time, and I think it was really made by Hasso Plattner's vision, and he started, it was around maybe 2006 with his Sanssouci database prototype at the HPI, so his Hasso Plattner Institute, where he created a column store database design that was capable of reading millions of data points in fractions of seconds. So all this entire huge amount of data basically available on your fingertips. So I think Hasso did really he created the path for business to use this big data for their own purposes.
Okay, and I mean, it's great, you know, the way it was developed. But do we need to be a data analyst then to make sense of all that data, and how to make sense of it?
No, I think, Liam, I think my plain simple answer is no. You don't have to be a data analyst, but you, as I said earlier already, you need to have a business vision about what to do with all this data. You know, for example, we have vast amounts of data that can help predicting future outcomes of events. So define event for me, you know, so it's very customer specific. Or I talked about identification of patterns, you know, so define what is a pattern for me. So what are you looking for to get out of this big data pool? So from that point, I think my approach is always business value first. You know, you need to have an idea of you know, what you want to do with the data from a business perspective, and then you might need to work with a data scientist at the end of the day who helps you to develop predictive algorithms to do what you want to do. So I think you don't have to be a data analyst or a data scientist. At the end of the day, you need to have the business vision, what you want to do with the data.
Okay, and I don't mean to pick on poor data scientists. We've lots of really good data scientists in SAP as well. Yeah. But a lot of these capabilities that you talked about, are they built into HANA already?
I mean, many of those capabilities are already built into HANA. So the answer is yes. So HANA provides really a broad set of analytical capabilities, particularly for predictive analytics, text analytics, and streaming. So this is, but let me first make an example, you know, from the area of Internet of Things, from IoT. So Trenitalia is the Italian railway company, and they introduced, they're using since a few years already, you know, predictive maintenance. So all moving parts of their trains, they got sensors, and sensors, they measure conditions like heat at the brakes or closing time of the door, temperatures of cooling systems, you know, energy consumption, that, you know, those kind of things, they might point to potential breaks in the future or not. So all sensors, they send data points continuously to the central data storage, what is a HANA system. So algorithms calculate their measurements, and they always calculate deviations from the expected benchmark. So any deviation could indicate a potential break in you know, coming down the road. So from that point, depending on the deviation, they define the severity. If a certain part has to be exchanged at the next stop of the train, or at the end of the day, or or it can wait until the next scheduled maintenance window. So predictive maintenance, in this case, it's really repairing before it breaks. So in fact, this concept of preventive maintenance got already into production at SAP more than 30 years ago. So Dr. Hommel named it early watch service. Remember, Liam, this early watch thing brought us together in Dublin in 1998.
That's right. I remember it well. Absolutely. And I guess, you know, sentiment analysis, X data, sometimes difficult to get your head around. Maybe talk a little bit about sentiment analysis and the impact.
Yes, I think, yeah, you're right. So sentiment analysis is another predictive scenario. It's also supported by SAP HANA. But it's more or less the ongoing filtering of data points or data streams from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, in order to determine notions, emotions about an event or a product. We take, for example, a go-live situation that of a customer that might impact all or most of its customers, like a bank brings out a new online application. So they want to observe comments and chats on social media about customer feelings and perceptions of the project, of the progress. So some years ago, when I was still involved in a bank go live, we had a full team of people. They did nothing else than manually logging on to those kind of to chat rooms and to social media, to Twitter, Facebook, to identify if there are some glitches. So today you could just stream automatically into HANA and get your information at the immediately.
Great. I mean, we've had many experiences ourselves in terms of go live situations, and you mentioned go live as well earlier, and I guess it leads to a very wide and complex topic all around the implementation and the implementation strategies. And we have X, O, and H data, and of course we need to do something with it. But I guess what's the most needed capability that business leaders need to have to bring to the table to be able to tackle these challenges?
Yeah, so I think it's strategic thinking. So I guess I mentioned already in several occasions. So it's really strategic thinking and think ahead. So I learned much from Sun Tzu, who wrote a booklet, The Art of War. It's more than 2,500 years ago, but in a nutshell, while he was, of course, a war officer, but he always had to think strategically, and his main strategic thinking idea was, he always wanted to outsmart his opponents. So he says, basically in a nutshell, truly wins who does not fight. So what is mean words? It's winning without fighting.
Okay, fighting talk, and I get something from 2,500 years ago. Is it really relevant? I guess what article or what element of that then really stands out for you?
Yeah, his booklet includes, I guess, 13 articles, but the most important one for me was Article 1, what is about planning. So Sun Tzu, he writes about factors like weather, time, terrain, leadership, discipline. So as such, he really had a complex model of different factors in mind. So what we can learn out of him from this old 2,500-year-old thinking. I mean, think about terrain. I mean, terrain in his world was really, out there and fighting, using landscapes and whatsoever. So terrain in our digital world is still there, but of course it changed, So, but what I think is most important to this very day is two things. What is discipline and leadership? So this means think about business leaders. They try to apply technology to business. So if you translate more or less his Sun Tzu's thinking into today's world, it means digital means technology. Therefore, I think business leaders must understand the core principles of technology, so they cannot just give it away or delegate it to somebody. So they need to understand the core principles of those things themselves.
Okay, and I guess to support your theory of the need for strategic thinking, you developed what you call a strategic compass. Maybe tell us a little bit about the strategic compass.
Yeah, so I try to put more or less, very interesting ideas Sun Tzu has into more an easy picture. So I found compass might help here to better understand. So on the north side, we have the leadership. So I talked about leadership. It's very important. For me, it's the main key. So a leader, they always know precisely what his or her strengths and weaknesses are. So on the compass, on the South Pole, it's counterbalanced with execution. So you have to do what you say. You have to walk the talk. You have to be able to set things in motion. On the one hand side, to the right, you have then the vision, what I talked about already several times. So you have to the capability to think ahead and to identify more or less future outcomes. And then, of course, the tactics that puts all the pieces on a project level, on a milestone level in an execution part. So all 4 components, they need to be in full play when it comes to digital business transformation.
Okay, strategic thinking, I mean, it's certainly one thing, but what about getting the job done? Can you apply any of the principles, for example, to implementation?
Applying Sun Tzu's principle helps us during the implementation projects of the digital transformation projects. And I would like to go here in some a little bit more in the detail. So this is, be it greenfield, brownfield, or bluefield implementations. So just to explain it to the audience here, greenfield is more or less an implementation approach that starts fresh. Starts from scratch. Often it's able to use best practice and other methodologies. So the focus of greenfield is really on innovation and change. At the end of the day, I want to have a digitized business process that is newly designed, and of course the business has to change to use it. So brownfield, on the other side, describes more or less a conversion of older IT systems to state-of-the-art digital platform technologies. So, however, usually in brownfield situation, you don't have not the time and also not the focus to do redesign of business processes. So the focus is really on a low risk technology upgrade. So in terms of tools, I introduce in the book also another piece of help, what I call a tactical escalator. It's more or less a 10-step approach that needs to be in place if you want to tackle any implementation, be it blue, green, or blue. So from that point, it would help you to identify the key needs, like application design, competence centers, root cause analysis, all those things. They are needed to make an implementation successful at the end.
Andreas, the power of partners and partnership has been core to SAP success over the years. Partners, they're the lifeblood of the SAP ecosystem. What part do you think they have to play in digital transformation?
I mean, they need to support digital business transformation. So I worked in this past year with JiVS. So this is Tom's company. So JiVS is the product. Data Migration International is the company. So they provide a data management platform, for example. So they can manage all the historical data, what we talked about earlier, and they can do some data simulation. So they have data simulation capabilities for any target data landscape. So the data migration topic is often kind of ignored, I would say, during the strategic stages. But think of Sun Tzu. Planning is everything and needs to include everything. So the data topic is a very important one and should not be included. So from that point, on this data level, JiVS allows, and I would say at the push of a button, to consolidate all data from all the different legacy systems into one data store. So there's no decision to make for any business leader about data retention periods, about data purging, about what there's. So it's very straightforward. So you protect, you keep all the history into one data store. So from that point, supports any database vendor, but it's very it has built-in capabilities, or the other way. So even S/4HANA has built-in capabilities to use the JiVS data platform. So from that point, the data, the partners, and they can really enrich the SAP ecosystem and make things much simpler.
Great. And I mean, what typical digital transformation scenarios do you have in mind when you're talking about with a data platform?
Yeah, basically, I have from a business perspective 3 major scenarios. One is system decommissioning. So this means during the implementation stage, I do greenfield. So I do something, I implement system. So I want to shut off the old systems with all the data. So JiVS can really help to move the data into the central data store, and then you easily can shut off the system. That very often it does not happen really. Old systems are really run even after the new system is in place. So the second one, and this is more often maybe than in these days, is mergers and acquisitions. So you combine, different companies. Of course, you have also to consolidate IT systems as well. So JiVS moves easily, move all the data, the O data and the X data, and preserve the historical data. And then a very specific scenario for SAP customers, for S/4HANA customers, what we call right sizing. So this is something where JiVS can help to keep your actual database, your in-memory database, for example, from growing and keep the size at bay. So in summary, all those 3 scenarios, they really start at the push of a button, and then you only take the data to the target system that you really need.
Great. And I guess just before we finish up and maybe go to the Q&A, there's some questions that have been posted in the chat. When you summarize the book in a sentence or two, what would that be?
I think the Transformers comes with so the book Transformers comes with many examples and stories I investigated throughout and within the world of data. So for business leaders, the book provides a foundation to understand, apply the concepts to their specific situations, enables them to guide their digital business transformation projects in a much better way.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Andreas. Tom, any thoughts or questions in the chat?
Yes, Liam, in fact, yes, and Andreas, we got actually 2 questions. I had much easier, but they have some meat on it here. The first question comes from Luis Colmenares in the question section. It says, "Hello, Andreas. It's good to see you as well as Liam. I meet with him in Ireland during the CCC Info Forum. My question is about what are the secret ingredients of the book on a methodology to build a good digital transformation strategy?
I guess, Luis, thanks for your question.
You can only maximum 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah. So first of all, you need to read the book. Then you get all the ingredients, of course. But in a nutshell, I think when I think back, I mean, the main ingredients is the strategic thought leadership. So you need to, if you want to build something, you need to know the end game. You know, so take a blank sheet of paper, you know, draw your end game, and then you easily define the way from today to your vision. But you know, visualize your vision on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper.
The second question comes from Anthony Profeta. Andreas, you mentioned Hasso's 2006 contributions to the database as the breakthrough in data storage. Can you expand on how this might have impacted the experience?
I mean, Hasso invented the InMemory Database, so or the HANA database. So he did not invent column-based the database architecture. So he used it. You know, but he at the end of the day, he really focusing on, you know, getting faster queries out of the database. So he achieved it focusing on the OData. So over time, you know, when particular, I mean, it's already passed already, but when SAP, you know, went into the experience data stage, I mean, the thought I had at that point, you know, they want to integrate, so they are using the technology, so the InMemory database. They're using the technology, but you know, focusing on complete different sets of data. What is, in this case, it's unstructured data. You know, so at the end of the day, HANA is also able to work on this unstructured data thing, you know, where all the experience data sit. So from that point, I think while Hasso did not have in mind at that point when he started his prototype in Berlin in 2006, that he wanted to focus on experience data. You know, in the meantime, you know, technology and also the business needs, they expanded into the space of experience data as well. So from that point, I think it's very encouraging to see that you know, HANA is not staying as a block forever, but they are moving and innovating and changing as they should.
All right, thank you, Andreas. I have one question that's my personal question, but I heard it from many people, and that's for you, Liam. As we know, SAP has done over the last, let's say, 10 years, maybe even more than that, a little bit, starting with business objects and so on, a lot of acquisitions. And the question is, what is the strategy? What is SAP strategy to integrate all those acquisitions over the last years in order to deliver, at the end of the day, more value? I mean, you mentioned also the partners that come into place. But concretely, what is what is SAP doing to integrate them into the core to bring more value to the table?
Thanks, Tom. A nice, easy question to end the evening on, or start it in Philadelphia. I mean, there's no doubt about a strong business process integration across the entire value chain and harmonized data model to provide a 360-degree view of the business using real time for SAP and non-SAP data is vital. I mean, we've also over time embedded Analytics Cloud, for example, directly into SAP S/4HANA Cloud. emerging processes and analytics. And this year we will continue to deepen the integration of our cloud solutions, with the focus on Fieldglass, C4HANA, digital supply chain. We have recently launched an integration strategy paper that's now available, and that document provides a comprehensive overview of our integration plan in the cloud. I mean, our business technology platform, including the cloud platform, the SAP Cloud Platform Integration Suite, provides all the capabilities for process data, user, and analytics-centric integrations as well, enabling, for example, out-of-the-box integration for SAP to SAP scenarios. Harmonized data models and a central master data service will simplify as well the sharing and distribution of master data across the intelligence suite. We've also recently provided an update to SAP's integration roadmap in the cloud, and including updated timelines for our key processes for the intelligent enterprise. So recruit to retire, lead to cash, design to operate, and source to pay. And our integration suite offering is also, it's completed by the SAP Integration Solution Advisory methodology that will help customers to define and execute their integration strategy. So there is a huge amount of focus happening on integration, and yeah, there's please keep an eye. I mean, all the information is on sap.com for both customers and partners there as well. But it is, I would say, one of the key focuses for SAP over the coming months.
Thank you very much, Liam. I think that's good news for the SAP customer base. We have many of them actually attending the webinar, so it's good news. And last questions before we end. Yeah, Andreas, so what's next? I mean, you had your long journey with SAP around the world. You did all these hundreds of implementations and have all that experience. And in your first book, you shared the pitfalls, and now you go more into a business setting, what really business leaders need to take, from design thinking all the way. They need to understand technology. It's not just that they can delegate it. It's, as the Germans would say, it's Chefsache. It's a management task. So what's next? I mean, are you cycling, or you become a master in organ playing, or what's next?
Maybe all. No, I mean, I always, when I say, the business leaders, they need to have a vision. I mean, I put myself in, this is my own shoes, so to speak. So what I experienced the last few weeks or so, I have still so many questions, particular around the topic of digital marketing. So how can I reach? How can I use the existing tools, not just paying Google ads and hope for the best, but so that I understand it. So at the moment, I don't understand it. So from yet to it full. So I could not do a talk on this subject today. But this is a topic that really drives me, and this is potentially a topic I will write my next book. So I will investigate first, and then I will give a little bit more, let's say, basic information, good information for, in particular, small and medium-sized business leaders. I mean, the big ones, they can, like Liam, he has so many data scientists at his hands. I mean, he can easily do whatever he wants. But the small ones, they are the 1 to 5 or 10 people companies, or even the 100 ones. They don't have departments, but they want to get out as well. They want to get on the digital channels. They want to reach customers. They want to be recognized. They want to be seen. So this is a topic that drives me, and this might be the theme of my next book.
Outstanding. That's marketing, as you know, is my passion, and I think that many companies, especially after COVID, they are trying to stay alive, and that can make the difference to reach the customer, and you need strategies for that. So here is you see on the slide here where you can get the book. I highly recommend to you guys to look at it. You can have a digital version, or you can have a real physical version. It's a beautiful book, makes it good on every coffee table when you have guests. So congratulations, Andreas, once again, and thank you, Liam, for all the time and insight to SAP, and thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, thanks both to you. So Liam, Tom, thanks so much.
More than welcome. Bye now.
Okay.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.